Hello folks and welcome back to my channel. It is finally time for another Ask Me Anything. I love these so much. I am so excited. Let's get into it. Recommendations for people wanting to upgrade their jewelry but unsure of what they want and intimidated by prices, asking for a friend. Well friend, do not be intimidated asking for prices or intimidated by cost of stuff. It is quite literally our job as body piercers and jewelry stylists and professionals to try and help you find the jewelry that you're looking for and work within your budget. If you're looking to kind of figure some things out, I would get in touch with either a piercer who offers styling or specifically a jewelry stylist. Let them know kind of the budget and the price point you'd like to stick within. Let them know some of the things you like and you're looking for, and they can work with you to help find pieces, curate ears, curate styles, and help you figure out what you're looking for. It is literally people's whole entire job to do this, and we are able to work with all sorts of different budgets. I really enjoy getting to do budget curations and like work within specific price points to kind of come up with something really fun and really unique. I know that the anxiety can be really hard to overcome with doing this sometimes, but I promise you that most of us who work in the industry are also really anxious, if that makes you feel any better, and are still like so down to help you with all of this. And if you have a really great studio near you that is a safe space, be honest and let them know that you are a little anxious about this. You are a little nervous about price, so you don't want to be a bother. They will be able to go into that interaction from an informed place and try and soothe your anxieties and make sure that you feel extra comfortable throughout the whole styling and design process. But please don't hesitate to reach out. This is literally our job. We are here to help you with this sort of thing. Is it possible for healed piercings to get irritation bumps? And also, what is my favorite color? First of all, yes, it is possible for healed piercings to get irritation bumps. Anything that causes your piercing to become super irritated can cause an irritation bump. Now these are significantly less likely on healed piercings, but it can still occur. Probably the #1 reason I see healed piercings develop irritation bumps is wearing low quality jewelry or jewelry that's not the right size. Usually jewelry that's too tight. Low quality jewelry is, oh folks, it's bad. It's bad. And a lot of folks wear it and happen to be fine, so there's this survivor bias where they're like, oh my god, it's gonna be totally okay. But quite literally a few times a month, I have someone come in with a otherwise very well healed, totally healthy piercing that they put some crap off of Amazon or Etsy in, and now they're in my chair, it's lumped up, it's bumped up, it's bleeding, it's tender, and they're like, I don't understand, my piercing is like 5 years old. And I'm like, well, your body really didn't like the jewelry that you put in it. Another big thing that can cause even healed piercings to get irritated is any form of really serious trauma. So if you like catch or snag this thing super hard, if you get hit in it super hard, I see this often after levels of impact trauma, clients being involved in car accidents or bad falls. Your whole body has experienced the trauma, your piercing has experienced some major serious physical trauma. That's going to cause things to get a little irritated. Medical issues can also cause even healed piercings to flare up with irritation bumps. Getting major surgeries, switching major medications, or just health problems in general. Also medical conditions like becoming pregnant, all things that can absolutely cause totally healed, totally healthy piercings to freak out and get irritated and have issues. So yes, this can happen. While it is pretty uncommon, it does still happen. So if you have a very well healed piercing and you notice it's irritated or getting grumpy, head back to your piercer, let us help. My favorite color, everyone assumes, is yellow. Can't imagine why, but it's actually purple. Purple is super duper my favorite color, and that's because it is the official color of body piercing, and I'm a huge nerd. I love NeilMed Aftercare solution, but it can get pretty expensive, so I've been making my own sea salt solution with distilled water. A piercer changing out my piercing discouraged this and says it's not very good because it's drying. Do I have a preference? Is it bad to use sea salt solution? Well, my friend, I actually have a whole blog post about this on my website. I wouldn't say it's like the worst thing in the world to use sea salt solution. We as an industry did use this as aftercare for a very long time. Homemade sea salt solution was how I healed a lot of my piercings as a teenager, but it is not great. It can cause dryness and irritation. It's really easy to be contaminated with bacteria and just other gross stuff we don't want on our piercings. And saline is inarguably a safer, cleaner, healthier version of this. If you really cannot access saline, I would personally just suggest using clean water over making sea salt solution yourself. It is really easy to make homemade sea salt solution too salty and cause a lot of dryness to your skin. Most folks are using food grade sea salt if they're making this themselves, and that is not really ideal for us to be putting on wounds. There is a pretty high level of acceptable bacteria and contaminant content in food grade sea salt. We're going to eat it and digest it and our body is fine with that. That is not acceptable in the salt that is used for creating medical saline. And it's also really easy to become contaminated as it's stored or while you're making it. So if you can't access saline, if it's too expensive for you, I would strongly suggest to just use clean water to clean your piercing with. The purpose of these aftercare solutions is not to like magically heal your piercing. It's a gentle solution that can help remove any crust, any debris from around the piercing. So if you're home making the solution yourself, you're already not using like the nice spray can, which I find that the spray can help with removing crust. So if you're manually removing crust and you just want a solution to do that with, clean water is totally fine and probably a safer bet than making salt solution yourself. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's like terrible and the worst thing ever, because again, it's what I used when I was younger, but it's not the best thing nor the safest thing, and we do see it cause issues. So clean water, better alternative. And as far as saline goes, you don't have to buy like the NeilMed brand. I personally usually grab like the Walgreens brand when it goes on sale. I found it as low as $2.99 for like a pretty big can. The CVS brand also sometimes goes on sale and is really cheap, and if you have coupons or like points accounts with any of those pharmacies because you pick up medication there or you get other things there, you can even use points and get these things for free. So there are also really accessible ways to get safe saline for aftercare. It does not have to be branded piercing aftercare saline. As long as it is just saline with no additives or preservatives, that's all you need. So also, saline might be more accessible to you if you look outside of just piercing aftercare for it. Can you talk about cartilage stretching? This got seconded and thirded, so cartilage stretching is going on my list of full-length videos to do in depth. I would start talking about it here, but I feel like it's gonna be probably like an almost hour-long video in and of itself, because that's a lot of information to cover. But I wanted to say that I saw this comment and I saw how many people liked it, and it's going on the list. Stay tuned. Maybe like November, December time. Full-length video on cartilage stretching, I swear. Pinky promise. Where can you find titanium jewelry that isn't just basic gems or balls? Why is so much of the more intricate stuff only white or yellow gold? Also, do you know where I can get internally threaded librets that are high quality? My piercer doesn't carry them, and the only other piercer in my city carries Invictus. So as far as why it's hard to find intricate jewelry in titanium, there is an actual machining and production reason for this. Titanium is a very difficult metal to work with. It's a very hard metal to work with. It can be a very difficult metal to polish. It's a pretty unforgiving metal to create body jewelry out of. So titanium is typically milled or machined, which means there's this big giant lathe and they take bar stock and stock pieces of titanium and they machine them into the shapes of the jewelry using these very big machines. And there is a lot of limitation to how much intricacy and design we can get when we are limited to machining jewelry. Whereas gold jewelry can be cast, so they can create a 3D mold of a very intricate, very decorative piece like some of these, and then they can pour the molten gold into this mold, create it in this very intricate shape, and work with the gold, add threading or pins to it, work with it like that. Now, back in the day, there used to be a company that was doing pretty intricate work with titanium and other materials called Fractal. And these pieces are now highly collectible in the piercing industry because the company no longer exists. But the difficulty in production of these pieces was incredibly high. And if you notice, a lot of these pieces do not have a polish on the decorative elements that would meet anything close to minimum standards for being worn in safe body jewelry because of the difficult to work with nature of titanium and how difficult it can be to polish those intricate shapes. I would love to see a company start doing more stuff with cast titanium. So if someone with like $1 billion wants to invest in the type of setup and experienced metal workers and experienced designers we would need to even just start experimenting with doing that, the piercing industry is waiting for you. But in the meantime, we have to work within the limitations of the materials that we have, and it is just not physically possible for us to get some of those same intricacies in titanium currently that we do in gold. So you're always going to see much more intricate, much more decorative pieces in gold, and the titanium pieces are going to end up being kind of simpler. Now, we have made a lot of recent advancements in body jewelry. The very first thing that comes to mind is things like what Leroy and Zadimer are doing with laser welded titanium and combining simple shapes to create big, beautiful decorative pieces. They are doing some incredible stuff with this material, and that's probably going to be the most decorative and most intricate you're going to see with a lot of titanium. However, there is a lot of gold that can meet a really affordable price point, and if you're looking for like a very specific type of design, you can always work with a piercer to try and customize a design, or do a payment plan to make it more reasonable for you to get a slightly more expensive piece in gold. But it is certainly not because piercers are like, we're only going to make the cool stuff out of gold. We would love to make the cool stuff out of titanium. It is just so unbelievably impossibly difficult to do so. As far as finding somewhere to get some reputable internally threaded labrettes, I have a whole online shopping guide on my website with links to all of my favorite personally Lynn verified online stores that only sell high quality body safe jewelry. Check it out. It is linked right in the FAQ on my website, and I will put it in the comment box down below. Can I make my own jewelry like for nostril or bridge piercings? Can you? Yes. Are you going to want to put in the amount of work and effort and labor it is to actually make a high quality body safe piece of body jewelry? That is a different question entirely. Body jewelry has to meet some very incredibly high standards to be a piece that's actually safe to wear in the body, especially if we're talking about a bridge piercing, which is a piercing that is very prone to migration, very prone to rejection and irritation, and as I just mentioned earlier, one of the #1 reasons why I see irritation and issues on healed piercings is improper jewelry. So if you are interested in making body jewelry for yourself, there is a lot of research and reading to do to understand what materials are safe to use, minimum quality as far as surface finish, polish, threading, connections, countersinks, gem setting, the types of adhesions, and like different materials that you use during the process. There's a lot that goes into it and goes into actually making a piece that is safe to wear in the body. A good starting point would be the Body Jewelry Verification Program through the Association of Professional Piercers, which has a lot of good information about minimum standards for piercing jewelry. But I will be honest, I meet a lot of like professional bench workers and goldsmiths who've been doing this for 20 years who decide to try and make body jewelry and very quickly get very frustrated at how difficult it is. So if this is something you're interested in doing, please understand that it really, really needs to be done well. It needs to be done to the highest caliber, and the results, if it is not, can easily lead to someone losing an entire piercing and having permanent scarring. So it is not something to mess around with lightly. Is it possible to stretch a vertical lip piercing like a vertical labrette? Yes, just probably not very big. My vertical philtrum is a 10 gauge, and this is as large as this puppy will ever go, because if I stretch it any further, I will definitely risk this just growing right out of my face or splitting my lip, because there's just not that much tissue there. But you can totally stretch these up to like chunky sizes for the piercing themselves. Someone with like the most phenomenal, incredible, thick, voluptuous, full lower lip that's like the perfect vertical labrette lower lip might be able to get a little bigger. You might be able to get to like an 8. Most folks with thinner or more petite anatomy probably shouldn't even go past a 14. A lot of being able to stretch this and how big is going to be based on your anatomy, and you're never really going to be stretching up to like super, super huge sizes on vertical oral piercings, because it would be very, very easy for them to tear or split or just have some really serious damage. But you can stretch them within a certain range. Again, mine is a 10 gauge, so it is an option. We're just not stretching these super, super huge. If you want something very large and stretched there, do a stretched philtrum, do a stretched traditional labrette, as opposed to oral piercings. If you're looking for like moderate large like mine though, totally possible and pretty cute. What oils and balms do I recommend for stretching your lobes? My absolute favorite is the Signature Balm from South Shore Adornments. It's what I've been using for like the last year and a half. It is so wonderful on my ears. I love it so much. It works really well for cold climates. It works really well even when it's hot out. It's just a fan favorite of mine. Other products that I've used in the past and liked include the Naked Oil from Industrial Strength LLC. I really like just jojoba oil or vitamin E oil, which you can usually find over the counter in all sorts of different places. And when I need like a really heavy extra moisturizing layer, I will use the Belief Aqua Balm, which is technically a facial and eye moisturizer. But for me, it is safe for my ears, so sometimes I use it on my ears as well. Just a friendly reminder, always patch test a product before you just start putting it on your ears. Make sure that it's going to be safe for you. Everyone's skin is different. But my holy grail lobe product is far and away the Signature Balm. It is so good. What are my favorite animals? My favorite animal is actually owls. I just love all sorts of owls. I actually have a bunch of different owls tattooed on me. I've been in love with owls basically since watching Blade Runner, which is my favorite movie, because I love the owl in Blade Runner, and it spurred on many nights of me Googling and reading and learning way too much about owls, and I just think they're really cute, really cool animals. From what you know, are genital and other under-the-clothes piercings ever an issue going through metal detectors or scanners at the airport, particularly for trans folks who are already flagged for unusual body scans? In general, piercings and other modifications, especially those under clothes, are a non-issue when it comes to airport scanners. Like they are specifically trained to know what piercings look like, and it certainly looks like piercings. It doesn't look like you have a bomb in your pants when you have some genital piercing jewelry going on. So they are non-issue the vast majority of the time. I've never been flagged for any of my piercings. I've never had any of my clients flagged for any of their piercings. That being said, for trans folks who already get flagged for unusual body scans, it's not really a great time to be trans in most of the country, and I would not be surprised if some terrible transphobic TSA worker decided to use piercings as an excuse to try and flag someone or give someone a hard time. So I would understand that like the physical act of having the piercings isn't an issue and almost never causes issue when it comes to body scanners. But if the person running the scan and checking the scan wants to be difficult and wants to cause problems, they may opt to use body piercings as their method for being difficult and causing a problem. I hate that that is a thing that I even have to say, but I'm also a realist and want to be pragmatic and honest with you that I could totally see that being something that happens. Do any companies make cute ends that would fit the 12 gauge internally threaded post that I have for my cheeks? Great news! 12 and 14 gauge threads are interchangeable. So you can wear the vast majority of 14 gauge threaded stuff on your 12 gauge bars, no problem. That is what I wear in my cheeks. I have 10 gauge bars that are tapped for 14-12 gauge threading, so I wear those ends on my cheeks. The only thing to bear in mind is if the piece has a countersink, you're going to want to make sure that it's countersunk for 12 gauge, but a lot of the decorative pieces that go in cheeks do not have a counter. Stuff you would want to wear in your cheeks is going to work just fine on those 12 gauge bars. Are there any piercings that you want/wanted but you don't have the anatomy for? Yes, absolutely. Probably most famously nipple piercings. I would sell any organs to have nipple piercings that actually healed on my body. I've written a whole blog post about this, but I have very difficult anatomy to pierce, and my first few sets were not done correctly to my anatomy, and now I have a bunch of scar tissue, and I have tried 10 times, and they have just never worked out. But I am stubborn, and so I keep trying and keep trying different things. And yeah, I would give anything to have nipple piercings that just healed on my body. And the real bummer is I think if I'd seen better piercers when I was younger, and I mean some of the piercers that I saw were some of the best piercers in the world at the time, but I just don't think had a really good understanding of my anatomy and how to work with my anatomy. I think if that had been different, they probably could have healed for me. But alas, I now have all of this scar tissue, so I can't have them anymore. I would also really love an outer conch piercing. I love outer conch piercings. I do them literally all the time. Totally don't have the anatomy for them, so I just live vicariously through all of my clients who do, whose ears I look at and go, you've got a really good spot for an outer conch. Have you ever considered an outer conch piercing? How do you feel about outer conch piercings? Do you want an outer conch piercing? Anyone who's worked with me knows that I get excited about them, excited about doing them. I suggest them to just about everyone who has the anatomy for them, because I don't, but if you do, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Your ear is simply asking for it. And then I had a triangle piercing as one of my dream piercings for an incredibly long time. Did not have the anatomy for it prior to taking testosterone. Totally do have the anatomy for it now that I am on T. So stay tuned for sometime in the near future when I eventually get my triangle pierced. I'll probably make a video about it, and I'm super stoked to eventually get it done. It's been a dream piercing of mine for a very long time. How would you go about stacking rings on a rook / stretching it? I really want to put 3 rings in, but I'm not sure how to go about it since I couldn't find any info online about rook stretching. Well, good news for you, I have a stacked rook. I've stacked rooks for my clients. Let's talk about it. The first step is going to be determining if you have the anatomy to stack your rook. A lot of people have rooks with this nice, shelfy, stable ridge. Awesome. We can stack some rings in it. If you have a more shallow or a more petite rook, trying to go for stretching and stacking could cause this piercing to migrate or reject. This should only be done on clients who have appropriate anatomy to support doing this. That being said, it is going to be significantly easier to stretch with a single piece first and then swap it to stacked rings once it's to size. So if your goal is 3 rings, I would probably stretch this to a 12 gauge in single pieces and single curved bars first, wear it in a 12 gauge for a while, get it nice and stable, and then swap it to 3 like 18 gauge rings. I can't suggest enough hinged rings for rook stacking. Just spend the extra money and get hinges instead of seams. I promise you, you'll thank me for that. But yes, I would start with a singular round piece first, curved barbell, stretch it up, 16, 14, 12. It's gonna take a long time between stretches. When I stretched my rook up to be able to stack it, I think I waited like 9 or 10 months between sizes, and it still sucked and was awful. And then I wore mine at a 12 for like, I don't know, probably like a year before I popped rings in it, and that still sucked. And now it's fine and comfortable, but it was not a great process. I wouldn't expect it to be a great process. I would expect it to be a very slow process, but it does look very cool when it's all done. If Invictus jewelry is criticized by many members of the APP because its quality is questionable, why do the organizers of the APP Congress allow them to sell jewelry at that event? I think this is a really reasonable question to ask. This is a question that a lot of piercers ask every single year. If some of these companies are low quality, why do they get to vend on the expo floor? And the answer is kind of nuanced. My understanding of this, and I am paraphrasing from APP members and board members and conference organizers that I've spoken to, is one, partially a funding thing. This is a very, very expensive event to put on, so if vendors are going to offer large amounts of funding, especially funding that promotes scholarships, gets other people, gets a lot of people to be able to attend a conference, supports volunteers and all of the work that they do, that's really important to make the conference happen. And unfortunately, some of these lower quality companies have really big wallets to get a lot done for an event like that. But also some of the legal repercussions surrounding being a nonprofit organization, but vetting who is allowed to vend at your event are very complicated and very difficult, especially because the organization is based out of California, but the event happens in Las Vegas, and some of these companies and corporations are headquartered in different states. There's like 3, sometimes 4 or 5 different sets of state level laws that have to be followed surrounding like how nonprofits run events, who is allowed to attend events at nonprofits. The piercing industry is pretty loosely regulated when it comes to federal and state level regulation, so we don't exactly have a lot of legal regulation to fall back on to be like, oh, this jewelry doesn't meet legal standards in this state, so we can't have it vending at our conference. We don't really have that to use as a legal excuse. So my understanding is the legalities of like barring some of these companies from vending, especially if they're willing to pay vendor fees and donate to the nonprofit event, is really, really messy and complicated. But the APP is aware that this can be very confusing in its perception, especially for certain attendees. This is part of what they're trying to tackle with their body jewelry verification program, which is a really, really incredible program that they have been working on very hard for the last couple of years. And every vendor that meets this verification program has signage at conference stating that they are body jewelry verification program approved. And that makes it very easy to be able to identify companies that are and companies that aren't. If you wanted more information about this, I would contact conference organizers. They would be able to give you a much more in-depth response, but that is my understanding of why they are allowed to vend at conference. Alright, if I answer any more questions, this video is going to end up way too long, so once again, thank you all so much for submitting such good questions. I'm always so, stunned by how informed and intelligent and interesting the questions whenever I do this are. I always it's honestly so hard for me to pick what questions to answer because they're usually all so freaking good. I love doing these, so I'd like to do them a little bit more often. If y'all want to see me do these more often, let me know. If you're like, no, Lynn, just keep making your regular content, let me know that too. And I can't wait to sit down and chat with y'all again soon. Bye!